Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the MindShare Podcast. I'm David Greenspan, and this is episode number 371. Now, last week I didn't give you answers. I gave you questions. And if you actually sat with even one of them, you probably realized something about you that you can improve, whether it was directly for you or it was in an effort to help make this industry that we all work in better. It wasn't meant to cause drama, and it wasn't about trying to overwhelm you. Just something to think about for each of us who play inside the sandbox we're all in together. And that thinking, that's usually what happens when it starts to get quieter, when the noise dies down. That's when we're left with our own thoughts. And what I've been hearing from people a lot lately are things like, yeah, I know what I need to do. I can't focus. Or, I'm thinking about everything, but nothing's actually happening. Or people talking about, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not burned out yet. Just mentally, it's a lot. So today I want to talk about something that's helped me, helped my clients, and helped a lot of high performers get clear on what's going on without pretending that everything continues to be fine. Because a lot of stuff going on out there, and it impacts every single one of us in different ways. I want to leverage a way to make the subconscious conscious, so you can truly organize, you can clarify, and you can even solve all those thoughts that swirl around in your mind every single day. And we're going to bring them to life so we can make sense of them and take this emotional load and start to lessen it. This is about getting out of your head so you can be the most productive version of you. See, a lot of people think their issue is motivation. I'm just not feeling it right now. I need a break. I have too much to do. I need a kick. But it's not. It's actually typically a result of mental overload, like too much on our plates to do, too many responsibilities, too many hats that we wear. It never ends. Now, we should state reality here. It, not ending, it's actually not a bad thing. We don't actually want it to end. We just don't want it to feel so overwhelming and so busy all the time, right? Well, our brain is great at coming up with ideas, at thinking through issues and situations, at helping get shit done, and at making us crazy sometimes too, for sure. But it's really bad at storing those ideas in an organized way so that we can truly remember them at the exact moment that we need them. It's always going. And there's no actual organization up there. It just keeps doing its thing. And then the thing is, everything lives in our heads. Our priorities start to get really scrambled where we can't really see what's going on. It's kind of blurry. We think about stuff when we should be thinking about other stuff. And also a lot of stuff we shouldn't be thinking about in that moment. But that's just how our brains work, right? It's always firing, always bouncing around with ideas, with thoughts. And then the stuff that needs to get done, the really important stuff, it kind of gets distorted. It makes us get to a point where we often can't even focus on what needs to be done. And then we start focusing on something else, and then, just to do something. And then this is where that whole idea of busy versus productive really comes in. Small things, they can start to feel big. We blow stuff out of proportion. We overthink situations that might not truly require that amount of time. And then the big things, it's almost like we go into a state of paralysis. Because when it's time to actually sit and focus to get shit done, we scramble, we procrastinate, once we realize what the real priority is, we cave in because it becomes conscious that it needs to get done. And now with everything else going on, it feels as if we need to climb a mountain, and that actually shuts us right down. Again, that's why people say they're busy, but they don't actually feel productive. And most likely aren't. Now, this isn't about being lazy. This is about overload. Too much information, too connected, too much to do all the time. In January is brutal for this. We come out of the gate, we're expecting to everything is on a high. We're hyped up off the idea of starting from zero again, an opportunity to reset, to change the game for ourselves, to make it better than it was. Then, when the results don't show up immediately, most people begin to fall off very quickly. I mean, think about this, right? January 17th was Quitter's Day. 80% of people gave up. And now here we are into the first week of February. The next 15% gave up. We're only left with 5% of people who are truly still focused and locked in on what they want from themselves this year. Think about that, 5% of people. This is the time right now. This is the time of year right now where people either start to numb out and completely spiral, or people start to make some realizations and you start to push forward. This moment in the year right now is what we're going to call this a fork in the road. Now, I'm going to tell you, this right here is the moment to say to you, this is where journaling becomes your outlet. Yes, I said journaling. Now, I'm not talking about just like affirmations and gratitude lists and writing letters to, your inner self. Not that stuff isn't helpful to the thinking process and to injecting energy and happiness into your life, because quite frankly, it is. And personally, I got to say, all those things I just listed, affirmations, gratitude, writing letters, I've done it many times for myself over the years. And it's very, very helpful at making you think much more positively and recognizing what you do have in life versus what you don't have yet. See, it's a great way to really turn your mindset around. And for people like us, though, like business owners, multiple hat wearers, the 80 or 120-hour a week people who grind it day in and day out, journaling is thinking on paper. It's bringing those subconscious thoughts that we just talked about to life. That's it. Journaling is how you create clarity when you start to have these like I said before, these moments of paralysis in our mind, like where we can't think, we can't focus. Journaling helps us do that. It helps us prioritize what needs to get done versus what distractions we allow to consume us. And it stops us from ruminating in that same vicious circle where the thoughts just swirl with no clarity, because it just constantly happens. You see, when we write down our own thoughts, it's really like talking to ourselves out loud. All of a sudden, everything starts to find its order. We start to create more mental clarity. We start to open ourselves up for more focus and more productivity. We solve problems. We lighten that mental load so we, bottom line, just don't feel so drained and overwhelmed. It really helps us to lock in and get shit done. And most often, we either don't talk to people about it because we don't have someone we trust enough to talk about it, or moreover, we don't talk about it out loud because of ego, bravado. We don't want to drop our guard and show any weakness, but that means we keep storing it, and it just keeps piling on and piling on. But journaling actually gives you your energy back. You see, the counterintuitive part to all this is that writing things down creates positive energy. And energy is what we need to drive us every single day. So when we're not focused, when we're not leveraging an outlet, when we start to leak energy, we feel the lack of. We don't perform at our best. For us, for our clients, for our families, again for us. And to the reference I just made about energy leaking, and think about that, right? Because we need that positive energy to run us in a day. But when it's leaking out, just like a leak with water, sometimes it's really subtle. You don't even realize. Just tiny little drips. Not enough to notice, not enough to hear it. And a lot of these, when it's energy, not water, but we normalize these behaviors. And those drain our mental and our emotional and even our physical resources. And that leaves us absolutely exhausted. Whether we had a good night's rest or just came back from a vacation, right? It causes us to want to avoid things, to want to stay away. We just don't have the energy for it. The ambiguity. Pretending something's fine. Making the same decisions over and over in our heads. Energy when we haven't got it, we just don't operate at our best. And everything starts to function as this really slow drain on this force that we have inside of us called life, which, if we don't deal with that stuff, it leads to fatigue, like chronic fatigue. It leads to overall decreased performance. But again, when we start to put this stuff on paper and we start to really write it down, when you start to put pen to paper, you start to see things. You're bringing that subconscious, you're making it conscious, you're seeing it come to life, and you start to become a lot more clear on what needs to be done. What's important right now versus like, what could I do later? Because that's a big part of it. When we're not tracking time and actually making sure that we schedule accordingly and we're operating to our goals and we're not clear on what's going on, why are we doing what we're doing right now? Is that what you're supposed to be doing right now? Is it taking you closer to your goals? See, when you put things on paper, things just start to get easier. It starts to feel easier. It doesn't feel as heavy of a load. And this is why people feel better when they have hard conversations with other people. Not because they, necessarily like they solved everything, but everything became more clear. There's less unknowns, less uncertainty. Journaling does that exact same thing, but it just does it privately. So again, the idea of putting pen to paper. Let's take a real quick commercial break here and make sure that we recognize our sponsors as always. This episode is sponsored sponsored by, how about both? Kids Keep in Touch Systems. Built to keep you connected to your people consistently, especially when your head is full and your momentum doesn't feel totally on point. If you sell real estate, you need kits. And REM Real Estate Magazine for real estate commentary and perspective in an industry that often defaults to noise. Make sure you're connected with both of these industry-leading brands. Now, it's funny, I as we're talking about journaling today, a thought that strikes me is that I never used to do any of this stuff, like writing in a journal, like I was doing like a Dear Diary, like definitely not my style. And if you notice how I just said that, there was actually some ego in that sentence. Like, I don't want you to know that I journal as if I'm soft. But I'll tell you straight up, very proudly right now, I do. I really do. I journal. Now, I don't start with Dear Diary, but I do journal. And I actually started a number of years back at the persistence of my wife, Jennifer. She convinced me to do it. I also read in one of Grant Cardone's books where he talked about journaling, and then I started to realize a theme as I was reading books written by popular, successful people, some of which are the baddest, hardest business people out there, and some were even real gangsters. And I thought, well, if all these people who've achieved so much in their lives, albeit from different walks of life, but successful nonetheless, if they can open up to this idea of journaling, okay, I can too. So I did. And what a difference it started to make. I'd open my journal and I'd start with the sentence, I am grateful for. Now, at first I started doing this every single night after we put the kids to bed. But I got to tell you, it got monotonous. It got boring. Just the repetition every single night of, kids to bed, okay, go write in the journal. Kids to bed, go write in the journal. It started to just become like robotic, and it wasn't really having the impact anymore. So started, well, okay, if it's getting boring, it's getting monotonous, I started writing in the morning instead. But that got boring at some point too. I felt as if I really just kept writing like a lot of the same stuff all the time. I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, I'm grateful for this. And I realized, line after line after line, day after day after day, I'm writing a lot of the same stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm certainly, absolutely grateful for all of the stuff that I wrote down. But again, it wasn't having the impact. It wasn't creating the mental clarity. It wasn't feeling like the outlet it once was. So I stopped. And over a period of time, which took time to realize, I started to veer off. My mind wasn't as clear. I wasn't as focused. I felt all overwhelmed and at times dark. So I start again. And the thing that I've learned about this process for myself is that it's truly an outlet, like a powerful one. But it's not the same boring thing all the time, the same repetitive motions. It's about how we have the conversation, what we say, and when we say it. So again, I decided to change up the way I go about it. Now, the thing I want you to notice here is that there is no right or wrong way to do it. Instead, there's your way that works for you. How you do it, when you do it, where you do it, and what you actually write. See, what actually works for us busy, driven people is that we do it. When we feel that moment in our day is right, that's it. You could do it when you notice that you are procrastinating, like you're just not doing what you're supposed to be doing right now. You could do it when you notice that you are completely irritated about a situation, or maybe you don't even know exactly what the situation is, but you just feel the irritation. You could do it when your mind is wheeling with these thoughts that just keep looping over and over and over again and bouncing around like this ping pong ball that I often reference. You could do it when you're avoiding stuff. You could call that procrastination, avoidance, maybe the same thing. You could do it when you just overall feel heavy, like just something ain't going right. I'm just not feeling it. I don't know what it is. Any of those feelings, any of those moments, that's really your signal to start writing. Grab the pen, grab the paper, and start to write. And you can answer just one question. You don't have to answer 10. Things like, and if we think back to the list here, what I just mentioned, procrastination and irritation and, thoughts and avoidance. And what am I avoiding dealing with right now? Try that. Answer that. What am I avoiding dealing with right now? Try answering, what would simplify this moment right now? Write that down. How about, what's actually bothering me? And what am I not saying out loud? Or, if I stopped overthinking this, what would I do next? Or how about simply, how am I feeling right now? And why do I think I'm feeling this way? See, these are all powerful questions to get us to dig deep, to get us to truly understand, where our brain's at, where our emotions are at, where our thoughts are at, why we're feeling the way we are. And look, when you're writing, there is no polish to this. Nobody else is reading this. This is all on you. Write that stuff as it comes out of your brain, okay? And you don't even need to reread the stuff or judge the stuff. Just get it out of your head. This is truly like talking to yourself. See, as you write, those subconscious thoughts start to become clearer. It all starts to make more sense. Because we're reading as we're writing, and we're thinking as we're writing. And as we do that, we begin to see the problems, the solutions, and the clarity. We actually bring a sense of organization to it all, which then helps with the self-realization, and therefore, our overall productivity. And now we're back. See, but most people don't do this. And that's why most people stay exactly where they're at. Why? Well, like I said a few minutes ago, the real reason people mostly just don't do this stuff is oftentimes because of ego. Maybe even just like personal ego, like as opposed to like anybody else knowing. It's just for yourself. I don't do this stuff. A lot of times people I just don't have the time. And I'm going to tell you, both of those, they're bullshit excuses. You are lying to yourself. You are holding yourself back. Ego? Really? Especially in the privacy of your own desk, your own home? Nobody's even going to know. Do it for you. And not having enough time. Again, did I say bullshit yet? You been on social media yet today? See, There's also the whole thing that there's actually the avoidance because clarity actually begins to create responsibility. See, when you know what actually is going on, you're like, wait a second, I just got the answer to what I got to do. But that's also a very subconscious thought. See, once you see things a lot more clearly, we can't pretend that we didn't. Like, you can't unsee it. And then that means something has to change. But for some people, that's uncomfortable. So instead, what do? Stay busy, stay overwhelmed, and like that's just the way we're going to live instead. But staying that way doesn't move us forward. It just delays, the inevitable. Like at some point, shit needs to get done. At some point, the problems need to be solved. At some point, you need to get your ass moving. But this is also why, some people feel the same way year after year after year. Even though they're doing a lot, like I'm doing a lot. I'm busy. Are you productive? Even though they're doing a lot each and every day, like they have not. Well, you have not created this outlet for yourself. So here's all I want you to do this week. Okay, we're right here at the top of February. And when we think about the top of February, and we think about where we're at right now, and as I mentioned off the top of the show today, 95% of people have given up. May not look like it. You may not see it. They may not put up, a sign about it or a post on social media. But they have. So here's all I want you to do, okay? At some point in your day, today, stop scrolling. Stop reacting to other people. Stop distracting yourself with activities that just really aren't serving your bigger purpose. Instead, go grab a notebook. Or grab your phone, whatever. I like the pen and paper. And answer this in writing. What's the one thing I keep thinking about but haven't dealt with? And what's the next honest move? What do I got to do? So again, what's the one thing? Answer this question for yourself. What's the one thing that I keep thinking about but haven't dealt with? And what is my next honest move? That's it. Not the whole plan, not the perfect answer. Just literally write down your next honest move. Write it, then act on it. Like I said off the top, right now isn't about, the motivation. It's not about some bright, shiny tech tools that are going to solve your problems. You can't fix the market. You can't automate mental space, but you need it. And that space, it's going to come from the clarity, not the hype. See, on last week's episode, we had a look in the mirror together. This week, we're giving that noise somewhere to go. And if you do this right, momentum is going to come back real quickly for you. Not everything all at once and not some big, dramatic entrance. But steadily, you're going to begin to feel better. I'm David Greenspan, reminding you to build MindShare because MindShare equals market share. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next week.